Good morning, Stampers. It's Elizabeth from StampScrapAndMore.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator located in Canada, and it is Monday, May 18th, 2020, and it's like 5:30 in the morning. It's a vacation day here in Canada, but I got up inspired and I thought I want to stamp today. So the weather is lousy and it's raining and it's cold, and not a better time to stamp than get into your stamp room and get crafty. I had a class yesterday, which was pretty full weekend of stamping. I had a free online class yesterday on my VIP page for my customers and my team, and we made 3 cards using the Sailing Home stamp set and dies. And I wanted to recreate that in a series of 3 different tutorials for YouTube. So we're going to start today with the first card, which I called it the beginner card. It's the casual. The 3 cards were beginner, casual crafter, and then avid crafter. So the first one we're going to do is the beginner card. So let's get over. And this is the card we're going to make. And it's using the Sailing Home stamp set. And in this case, we're not using any of the dies, but this is the coordinating dies for it. This bundle is this product is carrying over into the new catalog, so that is great. Actually, everything that we're going to be using today other than a punch is carrying over, so which is a bonus. So we're going to be using Sailing Home, and for this card we're going to use the Lighthouse and the Compass. And we are also going to be using Night of Navy. So if you have a pen handy, I am going to give you some measurements so that you can play along either now or a little bit later. Night of Navy cardstock is 8.5 by 5.5, and it is scored in a half. Whisper White, we need 2 pieces that are 5.25 by 4, one for the outside and one for the inside. We need a piece of designer series paper, and this is from the coordinating designer series paper. I lied on my first comment that I said everything we're using is carrying over. This is not carrying over. We're going to be using a piece of designer series paper, but you can use any designer series paper that you have on hand that will fit, and you can make use of. There's lots of designer series paper that Stampin' Up! Has that you could switch this out. Or if you still have this on hand, I think it's called Sailing. Oh, you're gonna ask me what it's called. Sailing Home? I'm just looking it up. I've got the package here. It's called Come Sail Away. It's called Come Sail Away. And it was greatly used over this last period, over the last year, and I have very little of it left. So just enough to finish off these few cards. So the designer series paper is 2.75 by 5.25. You will need a piece of Night of Navy that's 2.25 by 3.5. And you'll need a piece of Whisper White that is 2 by 3.25. You'll also need a scrap piece of Whisper White that you're going to use to punch out the compass. And you'll need some of the braided trim. This is called the braided linen trim, and that is carrying over. And you'll need Night of Navy stamp, and you'll need a punch or a die. This punch is retired. It's 1 3/8 circle punch. I don't get rid of my punches because they come in handy for when I'm doing things like this, but you can use one of the circle layering dies for this as well. Okay, this is such an easy card, but that's why it's called simple stamping. No die cutting, no embossing required. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take the piece of designer series paper and we're going to mount it. So the designer series paper is 2.75 by 5.25, and we are going to mount it on the piece of Whisper White that's 5.25 by 4. 5.25 by 4. And I'm just going to put adhesive on all 4 sides and mount this to the left-hand side flush on the bottom, matching the left, and then flush on the top. And if there's a little bit left over, I usually cut a little bit longer because it's easier to cut off than it is to have like white spots, white on the edge. That's the first, easy peasy, right? Now we're going to take the bird stamp and just stamp the bird over here in the right hand side. When I did this card yesterday, I stamped the bird first, and then I didn't have it over far enough, and so part of the paper cut it off. So that's was a lesson learned for me. There we go. And while we've got this out, the ink out, I'm going to stamp the compass, and I'm just going to stamp it down here in the corner. I find it takes the blue just a bit longer to dry because it is really highly pigmented. So I'm going to ink up the lighthouse, and I'm going to layer that on top of this. Here we go. And we've got the lighthouse. And I'm going to put that aside as well. And while I'm here, I'm going to close the ink pad and move the inked stamps away. I see a little bit of white down here, so I am just going to get out my trimmer and trim that edge off. I didn't have the paper aligned properly, obviously. If I had extra on the top and not enough on the bottom, I'm not cutting off enough to make it really matter. Okay. And now we're going to take the linen thread, and this is probably 12 inches, enough to wrap around the card like that. And then we're going to tape it on the back. So I'm going to just wrap it over. I'm putting it on top of the designer series paper, not on the white. And I'm going to flip it over. And if I was somewhere on my desk, there it is. And I'm just going to use some Scotch tape to tape that down. If I was going to do a bow, I would just wrap it right around, but because I'm not doing a bow, I'm just going to tape it to the back. And then I'm going to take it over one more time to make sure I've got it lined up right. And I'm going to tape that side down. Now it's not going to matter so much on this card, but we're going to do a similar effect on another card, but I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I don't like it because the ribbon is not flush to the card, and it kind of moves. So I'm just going to take a glue dot. I'm taking a glue dot and I'm kind of rolling it around to bunch it up a bit to make it smaller. And I'm just going to stick it on the designer series paper like that, and then I'm going to adhere the ribbon down, and that way it's not unattached. That's the term, unattached. Okay, and I'm telling you, this card is so easy. Oh, I forgot to stamp the inside. Oh well, we'll do that in a minute. Just gonna okay, and now we're going to adhere this to the card base with my snail adhesive, and just make sure you get snail adhesive on top of the ribbon, but you might shift the ribbon a little bit, so just before you adhere it back onto the card, just turn it over to the front and move the ribbon back if it did shift. Mine didn't shift, so it just might shift a little bit, so just put it back into alignment. And we're going to adhere this, making it even on all four sides. Oh, that's not even. trying to get it even. There we go. So even on all four sides. And now we're going to take the Lighthouse and do the same thing. We're gonna, ooh, I've got a coffee here off on my left hand side, and I almost spilled it. Like that would be the first time that happened, right folks? And I'm gonna mount that like that. Before I go do this next step, I'm just gonna go back to the inside of the card here and the Knight of Navy, and I'm going to stamp the compass in the bottom left hand corner because I want to make sure that that's dry before I adhere to the center of the card inside. There is a north, south, east, west on here, so I'm just making sure that I've got it right. And if you wanted to stamp the envelope, now would be a good time to do that as well. Okay, now with the punch, this is the 1 3/8 punch. Like I said, it's retired, but you can use one of the circle layering circle. Okay. Now with, I didn't do it on this one, but we're going to do it on this. We're going to take the Wink of Stella, and I'm going to, the bottom part, I want to give it sort of like a water effect. And so I'm actually blending in the ink with the Wink of Stella. So it's coloring it in like it's water, and it's also laying on some of the shimmer from the Wink of Stella. Like that. Okay. And I didn't do it on this one, but I did suggest it. I'm just looking for, which one is this? This is Light Daffodil Delight. I did say it would be an option if you wanted to take this up a little bit. I'm just taking the Light Daffodil Delight and I'm lightly coloring in the windows of the top of the lighthouse. Like that. Just adding a little bit of detail. Didn't do it on that one. And now we're going to put dimensionals, and because we've got this ribbon here in the middle, I'm going to straddle the dimensionals. So on the 4 corners, and then I'm also going to put in the middle, 2 in the middle, and so that kind of straddles here. I had a day of crafting yesterday, actually a full weekend of crafting. I had a Stampin' Up! Global Fair Share on Saturday. So there were 17 demonstrators from UK, started in Australia, UK, England, Australia, UK, US, and Canada. And it was a day of creativity for our customers. And we, there were 17 presenters, and it was an all-day thing, but boy, was it ever fun. Okay, and then last but not least, we're going to mount this and the compass, and we're going to put some Tombow glue on this side and a dimensional on that side. Yeah, that was Saturday, and then yesterday was my Sunday, Simple Stamping Sunday, and I'm actually really loving it. Something I started during isolation, and I think my stampers are starting to love it, and they're coming out in droves and supporting it, so I'm really happy about that. And then last but not least, we're going to put a rhinestone in the center. The first rhinestone I put in, I used, what did I use? I used the champagne. I didn't like the look of it. So then I switched it up and I put the clear rhinestone. But now I'm going to switch it up again, and I'm going to color this dark Night of Navy and see what we get. Should have done this before I put it on, but You tell me what you think. It's okay. Which do you like better? The dark night of navy or the clear? I'm on the fence. I like both of them. I like both of them. And then last but not least, we are going to adhere the inside of the card. Oh, I'm out of adhesive. Oh, here we go. You know, Stampin' Up! Is changing their adhesive, right? I can't wait till we get our hands on the new adhesive. Okay, and we're going to mount that to the inside. And you have a simple card using the Sailing Home stamp set. Absolutely no die cutting involved, and not a lot of fussy cutting or detailed stamping. So I think it's a card that anyone would be able to put together. So that's today's card, and I hope you enjoyed it. And there's 2 more coming in this series. One for a casual crafter and then one for an avid crafter. The avid crafter is Kim Fee inspired, and I loved her card so much that I was like, oh gosh, I gotta make this. So I have to give credit to Kim. So thanks for stopping by. My name is Elizabeth Green, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator located in Canada. And you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. That's me here. And I'd appreciate it if you'd hit the subscribe button so that you can get notified when I post content. Take care and have a great weekend, or whatever's left of the weekend if it's a long one for you. Bye-bye.